Honda didn't make their engine faster for Miami. They made it survive. Because after vibrations so violent they were damaging the battery, limiting power, even hurting the drivers. Honda found a way to stop it. And here's why that changes everything. For the first time this season, the engine might run at full power, for a full race, without shutting itself down. No limits. No hidden losses. No missing energy. Which means the performance we've never seen could finally appear. And if that happens, this reliability fix becomes the most dangerous upgrade on the grid. At the start of the season, nothing about Honda looked dangerous. It looked like a disaster. The car couldn't finish races. Not because of strategy. Not because of bad driving. Because it physically couldn't survive. The vibrations coming from the engine were so intense, they were damaging critical components inside the car. The battery system, which controls electrical power, was taking hits every lap. And once that battery is compromised, everything starts to fall apart. Because in modern Formula 1, power doesn't just come from fuel. It comes from energy. Electrical deployment. Boost out of corners. Extra speed on the straights. Lose that, and you're not just slower. You're invisible. And that's exactly what happened. Honda's engine wasn't weak in theory. It was restricted in reality. The team had to reduce how hard they pushed it. Limit how much energy they used. Even control how many laps the drivers could complete, just to avoid further damage. Think about that for a second. A Formula 1 car being held back, not to save performance, but to survive itself. And here's where it gets even more revealing. The root of the problem wasn't something simple. It came from the design philosophy. Honda built one of the most compact engines on the grid. Smaller, tighter, running at higher temperatures to maximize efficiency. On paper, that's perfect. More efficiency means more performance. But in reality, higher temperatures created stronger internal stress. And that stress turned into vibrations. Those vibrations didn't stay inside the engine. They traveled through the chassis, into the electronics, into the steering wheel, even into the driver's body. That's why the issue became so serious. It wasn't just mechanical. It was physical. And this is the part most people missed. Because while everyone was looking at lap times, the real limitation was invisible. The engine had more to give, but it couldn't release it safely. So what we've seen so far is not the real Honda. It's a restricted version. A controlled version. A version that has been holding back its own potential from the very beginning. And that leads to one critical question. If the problem was never pure performance, what happens when that limitation disappears? But here's where everything starts to shift. Because Honda didn't try to make the engine stronger. They made it calmer. And that sounds small, but it isn't. Instead of chasing more horsepower, they focused on stopping the damage at its source. Not by redesigning everything, but by targeting the exact points where the problem was born. The vibrations. And the solution is almost surgical. They changed how the engine connects to the car. New engine mounts, designed to absorb those violent frequencies before they spread through the chassis. Not rigid anymore, but controlled, almost like shock absorbers for the engine itself. Then they moved to the next weak point. The steering column. Because those same vibrations were reaching the driver's hands, making the car unpredictable, uncomfortable, even painful over long runs. So they filtered it, adjusted it, reduced what the driver feels, without changing what the car does. But the most critical change is the one you'll never see. The battery mounting system. Before Miami, the battery was directly exposed to everything coming from the engine. Every vibration, every shock, every frequency. Now, it's isolated, protected, separated from the chaos happening behind it. And that single change could be the difference between losing power and unlocking it. Because if the battery stays stable, the electrical system stays alive. And if the electrical system stays alive, the car can finally use everything it was designed to use. Full deployment, full boost, full performance. And this is where things get uncomfortable for the rest of the grid. Because this is not a visible upgrade. There's no headline speed increase. No dramatic new component. But suddenly, the car stops holding itself back. And that means something very simple. The version of Honda we've seen so far is not the real one. But here's the tension. None of this has been proven over a full race distance. Not under Miami heat. Not under race pressure. Not with tire degradation, energy cycles, and constant load pushing the system to its limit. So now, everything comes down to one moment. Not qualifying. Not the start. The race itself. Because if the car completes every lap, without failure, then for the first time all season, Honda doesn't just survive. It reveals what it's been hiding all along. And this is where the story goes from technical to dangerous. Because once the engine becomes stable, everything else starts to matter more. Now suddenly, the limitations disappear. The electrical system can deploy full power, lap after lap. The drivers can push without holding back. The strategy team can stop managing survival and start chasing performance. And that's when the real car begins to show itself. Because hidden behind all these problems, there's something most people forgot. The chassis. The aerodynamics. The design. This is not a slow car by concept. In fact, internally, it's considered one of the most aggressive designs on the grid. Radical suspension. Clean airflow concepts. A layout built to maximize long-term performance, not short-term safety. But none of that mattered before. Because if the engine fails, everything else becomes irrelevant. Now imagine removing that limitation. Suddenly, the airflow works as intended. The downforce becomes usable. The balance improves, because the car is no longer reacting to constant vibration. And the driver finally trusts what's underneath them. That changes everything. Because confidence is not just a feeling in Formula One. It's lap time. If a driver hesitates for a fraction of a second, that's already lost performance. If they can't attack the corner, they lose momentum. If they don't trust the car on exit, they lose speed on the straight. So when you remove the instability, you don't just fix reliability. You unlock performance that was already there. And this is where Miami becomes something much bigger than expected. Because now, we are not just watching a team trying to survive. We are watching a team trying to reveal its true level, for the first time. But there's still one layer that makes this even more important. The future. Because Honda is not just fixing the present. They are positioning themselves for what comes next. The ADUO system. If their engine deficit is large enough, which all data suggests, they qualify for multiple performance upgrades later in the season. Real upgrades. Not reliability. Not fixes. Pure power. And we're talking about gains that could completely change their position on the grid. But here's the condition. They need data. They need races completed. They need a stable platform to build from. Without that, those future upgrades mean nothing. So Miami is not the final goal. It's the foundation. The moment where everything either starts working, or continues to fall apart. And that's why this weekend feels different. Because if Honda gets this right, if the car runs clean, if the system holds together from start to finish, then what we've seen so far becomes irrelevant. And what comes next becomes very hard to stop. And this is where the pressure becomes real. Because everything sounds promising until you remember one thing. None of this has been proven under full race conditions. Not yet. And Miami is one of the worst places to find out the truth. The heat alone changes the equation. High track temperatures push every system to its limit. The engine runs hotter. The battery works harder. The cooling becomes critical. So even if the vibrations are reduced, the stress is still there, waiting. And this is where small problems become big ones. Because in Formula One, you don't need a total failure to lose performance. You just need a slight limitation. A small drop in energy deployment. A minor overheating issue. A tiny loss of efficiency. And suddenly, over a full race distance, seconds disappear. Positions disappear. Opportunities disappear. That's the reality Honda is facing. Because this isn't just about fixing vibrations. It's about proving the entire system can handle continuous pressure, lap after lap, without breaking down again. And there's another layer most people overlook. Race rhythm. Before Miami, the team couldn't run long stints. They couldn't gather consistent data. They couldn't understand how the car behaves over time. Everything was interrupted. Everything was incomplete. Now, if the car runs clean, they finally get that information. And that changes how they operate instantly. Better strategy. Better tire management. Better energy deployment. Because now they are not guessing anymore. They are reacting to real data. And that's when a team starts improving rapidly. But here's where it becomes even more intense. Because the drivers themselves become part of the equation. Before Miami, they were managing the car, protecting it, holding back. Now, they might be able to attack, push deeper into braking zones, accelerate harder out of corners, trust that the power will be there every single lap. And when that switch happens, lap time follows. But there's still one final risk. Because sometimes, when you fix one problem, you expose another. Maybe the vibrations drop, but the cooling becomes the new limitation. Maybe the battery survives, but energy deployment reveals new weaknesses. Maybe the car becomes stable, but tire degradation increases under full performance. That's the unknown. And Miami will expose it. Completely. Because this is not a controlled test. This is a race weekend. Pressure from the start. No time to adjust. No time to hide. So by the end of this race, we will know something we haven't known all season. Not how fast the Honda engine could be, but how fast it actually is when nothing is holding it back. And if that answer is strong enough, then everything we've seen so far was just the beginning. And this is where everything finally comes together. Because Miami is not the breakthrough, it's the reveal. For the first time, this car will run without artificial limits. No forced reductions. No protective restrictions. No hidden compromises just to keep it alive. Just pure, intended performance. And that's something we haven't seen yet. Not once this season. Because until now, every lap, every run, every race has been incomplete, interrupted, restricted. Now imagine removing all of that. Suddenly, the energy system deploys exactly as designed. The engine runs through full race distance without backing off. The driver pushes without second-guessing every vibration, every corner, every straight. That's when the real picture appears. But here's what makes this moment so important. It's not just about Aston Martin. It's about everyone else. Because the grid has been measuring Honda based on a broken version. A limited version. And if that version disappears, every comparison changes. Every gap needs to be recalculated. Every assumption, questioned. Because if the car is even slightly competitive under full conditions, then the future becomes dangerous. Not immediately, but very quickly. Because once reliability is solved, development accelerates. Data becomes consistent. Upgrades become meaningful. And most importantly, the ADUO system comes into play. If Honda is as far behind as expected, they unlock the largest development window available. More upgrades. More power. More opportunities to close the gap. And this is where the real shift could happen. Because now, you're not just fixing a problem. You're building momentum. From survival to stability. From stability to performance. From performance to pressure on the teams ahead. And all of that begins with one simple outcome. Finishing the race. It sounds basic. Almost insignificant. But in this context, it's everything. Because if both cars cross the line, it proves the system works. If the system works, the real development begins. And if that development starts, then what looks like a struggling team today could become something very different later in the season. So when the lights go out in Miami, this is not just another race. It's the first time we see the truth. Not the damaged version. Not the restricted version. The real one. And once that version is on track, the rest of the grid won't be guessing anymore. They'll be reacting. Because the biggest question is no longer, can Honda fix the problem? It's what happens when the problem is gone.